Welcome to Natural Wonders. Thanks for tuning in. It's been a beautiful October day here in Buisichem in the Netherlands. And I was working in the garden today, having a nice day. And I thought, yeah, I might as well. There's a video I've been meaning to make because people have been asking me questions. So I wanted to make a quick, not too long video just about my process of buying a home here in the Netherlands as an American expat. Still tied to America in some ways, but people want to know what that process was like. Is it difficult? Is it straightforward? And it's been completed since about a month ago, 6 weeks now. So I just kind of wanted to go through that process of what it was like over the past couple of months of getting it. Hopefully it'll be of some use to somebody that's watching, and hopefully that's why you're tuning in. So here we go. I'm gonna detail it now. So just a quick reintroduction of why I came to the Netherlands in the first place. It was about 4 years ago, 2019, in the summer, and really wanted to just move out of the States, see something new, experience something new. And I was gonna move out one way or another, but fortunately the job that I worked for also had an office in Utrecht in the Netherlands, and I worked in North Carolina, born and raised there. I was still living at my parents' place, and then yeah, fortunately it worked out that we had an office here. I mean, it's a longer story. I detail the whole process of moving out of America to the Netherlands, the adjustment I made a couple years ago. I think it's called my process of moving from the US to the Netherlands, something like that. If you want to know more about that, just check out that video. But so after 4 years of being here, I started to feel, okay, this is actually where I want to be, you know? When I first moved here, I always thought just 2 years maybe, and I'm on to the next thing. And that shifted for me after a few years. So here in the Netherlands, I really started to feel like I'm at home. Part of that was becoming partners with a Dutch woman, I'm sure, and getting more integrated in the life and her family and friends. And I think before that, I was mostly just friends with other expats. And I think that's how it goes for a lot of expats, particularly in this country, but I think all over the world. So after feeling that, I'm pretty sure I want to be here. I think just logically or just naturally, the next step that came was, yeah, I think I'd rather buy a home then. Since I'm fortunate enough to be able to do that here. It's actually very difficult for a lot of people with the housing shortage and crisis in the Netherlands. It's hard for younger people to buy homes, or anybody at this point, you know. So if you're in the market already, if you're on the housing ladder, then of course it's much easier. But it's really difficult for first-time home buyers in this country. A lot of people are struggling with it, and they're starting to give more incentives for that. So anyways, at that point I decided to look for homes. So the main website, they have several, but the main one that I use and a lot of people use is called funde.nl. And it's a normal housing search. You can look for rentals, you can look for buying, you can sell your home there. And it's one of those sites, and I searched a lot, just over a couple months period, did some market research a little bit, not too in depth, but just to get a feel for, okay, this is what I can afford. And once I get that in my head, what can I get in what area? In Utrecht, in the city that I lived in at the time, I mean, yeah, for my budget, I could get like an apartment, or like a studio apartment maybe, but not much more than that. And something that I really felt is, if I'm gonna invest, really, it's not just about money. It's about feeling really at home in a place, getting a place that I actually want, you know, that I can turn into my own over time, and with my partner as well. And so I very quickly realized, like, yeah, I don't want to be in Utrecht. I don't want to be in any major city, because I'm not going to be able to get what I want. Also, I don't really want to be in the city anymore. I've been in the city for the last 5 years. It's very busy. It's a lovely town. I mean, Utrecht it's really, I mean, it's a gorgeous city. It's very charming, very youthful, vibrant, friendly, open. You know, people are very open-armed there, and it's nice, like, very welcoming. But at the same time, it's also a city. It's also extremely busy, and just wanted something new. You know, I wanted some space. I wanted to be able to breathe. I wanted to be able to step out in my backyard like this, make a video, walk around barefoot, you know. And that meant a lot to me. And also to start a garden. If you've seen any of my content lately, you see it's been shifting more towards that. And having my own space to do that it felt important. How much space was up for debate because I didn't know what I could get. And I went so far as to look hours away, like an hour and a half from here, towards this town Groningen, way in the north of the country, just to see how much land I can get for my budget. And I got to a place that was like, it's half a hectare, like 5,000 square meters, and it was literally a food forest in the backyard, and it was beautiful. I mean, the house itself was amazing. It was in this town village called Oude Pekela, and I mean, I was in love with the place, but right after the tour of the home, we stepped outside into the village. We're like, let's get a feel for the village, and very quickly we were like, oof, I don't know about this. Like, it was rough. It's really rough. I mean, just the people there looked very depressed. And it was something in the air, you know. Sometimes you're somewhere, you're just like, this ain't for me. And it's a super remote village, so you get a lot more stairs. I was just like, okay, I'm not doing this. So we narrowed the search down because you can't have everything, you know. We want everything, but you can't. We narrowed it down to being close to family, which is relatively in the Utrecht area, but in this region. Doesn't have to be right next to it, but somewhere reachable. To have a garden, to not have a completely ridiculously low energy label, and for it not to be like just a project home where you have nothing, it's just scraps and you gotta work on everything, you know. It has to be livable already. And we viewed some homes that weren't livable just in the spirit of seeing how much space you can get. And actually this was one of the first homes that we saw, and it was just at a much higher price. It was actually a little bit out of our price range, but I was like, this is kind of close. This is close, and it's space, and it looks in good shape. It needs some work, but it actually looks solid. And I was like, let's just see it. And we saw it, and it was in the midst of summer. I remember it being super hot, but I also remember just feeling like, okay, this could be something, yeah. But we'd have to negotiate, and actually just left it there. I mean, it wasn't perfect, and it was still a little highly priced, so it's like, okay, forget it. And after that, we decided, we just looked at other homes and took our time. We weren't really rushing. And actually, the day that I got news from my job that, hey, actually, we'd like to give you a raise at this point, and you know, kind of solidify you in this office in the Netherlands, because we came here to the Netherlands, or I did, with the idea that at some point go back to America, but we just pretty much solidified this future contract that I would have, and that made a difference, because I was like, okay, this I know is my ceiling now of what I can buy with a home. The day that I found that out, this home was removed from Funda and then reposted on there at a price that was 20,000 euros lower, and actually the price that I said I would do it for this price, you know. And it just felt like fate for me. Like Hirosha was way less yeah, she was way more reluctant. She wasn't like ready to jump, but I couldn't stop myself at that point. Like, it was like, I know I want it. And I know I've seen her in the home, you know, when we're doing the tours, and I see that she can also love this place. And she was down with it. She was willing to follow my lead on this one. So it's like, yeah, we're doing it. And I guess something that I need to go back and tell you is that the whole banking situation coming here from America, I was still getting paid in US dollars, right? So I had to find a bank And I decided that, well, it wasn't very difficult to find the bank because there aren't many banks that will fund you, that will finance you, give you a mortgage if you're not getting paid in euros. So actually, it was very limited. Because of that, I decided not to get a mortgage advisor because I don't need them to search for all the different types of banks because it was very limited for me. It's like, okay, that's the bank then. I made it simple. I'm not going to make it more complicated than it needed to be. I called the bank. They tell me what I can afford with my salary, with my bonus, all the stuff. And that's kind of how it starts. I should have started with that. It starts with the bank telling you how much you can afford. And the great thing is that they finance you 100% of your mortgage. So if the house costs $300,000, they'll give you $300,000 to buy the home, or they'll pay for it. And then you pay the bank for the rest of your life. So that's how it starts. And I didn't get a mortgage advisor. I didn't get a broker to look at homes to find the right home, the perfect dream home for me. So I was like, man, I can just find it myself on Funda. I already found it. I don't need you. And so I think I saved probably a few €1,000 on that. You know, it's usually like 1 or 2% for a broker, a real estate broker. Maybe the same, 1 or 2% for a mortgage advisor. But, you know, I also don't know if I got fleeced out of any money on the back end because I didn't get them, you know. Because in that sense, my mortgage advisor is technically the bank. You know, they're who telling me what the options are when, you know, maybe if I had my own guy, he would be able to tell me that, no, they're bullshitting. Actually, this is the case. I didn't have that. I kind of went into it a bit on my own. I did a lot of research. I mean, a lot. So, and it was a bit stressful because that means I did all the documentation myself. I had to make sure that I didn't have any blind spots. So I understand why people would get a mortgage advisor or would get a real estate broker. It's particularly if you have a family or if you're working nonstop or you don't have the time or you get stressed out by all this stuff immensely with with everything else you got going on in life. I understand why you would get a broker in real estate, just people to manage everything for you. But me, I felt like I had the bandwidth to at least try because I was really curious what is this process? You know, what is it to buy a home? What actually goes into this step by step? And so I did it myself, and with a lot of good advice from people who have bought homes here before. And I'm really grateful for that. At least calm my nerves, if anything else. But it was useful for sure. A lot of the advice that I got from family and friends. So the negotiation process, once I made a bid on the home, I pretty much made a low bid from even that low reduced price. They were like, we don't know, we're gonna give it time. Then I was like, all right, fuck it. Like, I folded immediately. I was just like, okay, I'll pay whatever the asking price is. Which, yeah, that's probably why it's also better to get a real estate broker. Or that's one of the advantages. Probably could have took some off the top, you know. But yeah, anyways, I was too scared of not getting the home, so I just like, yeah, I got it. And it happened really fast after that. Once I put up the asking price, they accepted. And a year ago in the Netherlands, there was a housing crisis even worse, where people, on average, you're overbidding 20,000 or 40,000 just to buy the home. I have several friends who bought homes last year or before me, and they overbid by a lot. Like that's just out the gate. You don't even see the home. You have to bid. But this time I had like a month or 2 months where we were looking at this home and we viewed it maybe 3 times before making a bid. So it felt really good to take that time. We had the chance to take that time. Everybody doesn't. But the market slowed down. And once that was decided, talk to the bank, and then that's when you have to provide all your documentation to the bank. You know, they say, we want to see your pay slips, we want to see any debt history, just everything, you know, your passport, your tax documentation, everything that you could think of. And an interesting thing that I found, I was talking to the mortgage advisor at the bank, and he was just like, yeah, honestly, because you come from America, we can't really check your history. I was like, what? We can't check your debts. You can't check anything. It's like, oh, in that case, I have no student loan debt. I have no credit card. Like, well, what student loan? I dropped out of high school. Am I gonna have student loan debt? I'm just, nah, I'm just playing. But you could, and it's an interesting thing about coming from another country and buying a home here, because there are laws against countries trading that information with each other, personal people's information. So yeah, anyways, we went forward with the process. And once I got all the documentation in, it was maybe a 3-day turnaround before the mortgage application was approved, processed, and I was like, wow, that was very fast, very, very fast. And after that, we just zoomed through it. Like, we set the date maybe 6 weeks later, 2 months maybe later, before we could actually get the keys, which felt like a grueling, long process, but it was fine. We enjoyed our last months in Utrecht. And after that, of course, you do the purchase agreement, you sign for the house. You set a date at the notary where you meet with the notary, what do they call it? Notaries, notary public, and the people that are selling the house, people that are buying the house, us. And we all meet at one table. It feels like a court case, and it's really strange, and everybody's together. And it's a weird process where you're all just face to face, and it's like very ceremonial. You know, hand over the keys now to them, sign this document. They needed a translator for me, which costed like $300. When I had my girlfriend, she could have done it. They were like, no, needs to be our translator. And it was like a lot of money came out. It felt like for nothing for this process, but. Anyways, that was the process. They said if you don't speak Dutch sufficiently, then you need a translator, and you have to pay for it. And a lot of hidden costs like that, but in the long run, it wasn't a very difficult process because and closing costs were maybe like 5,000, 6,000, I think, euros. And in the end, that's pretty much what you have to pay up front to buy a home, at least at that price range. But another thing is that a transfer tax is a thing where at 6% of the home, that's what you have to pay up front, also on top of that other 6K that I mentioned. And the nice thing is this transfer tax is exempt. You're exempt from it if you're under 35 and it's your first home in the Netherlands, because they're really trying to help people buy their first homes, young people especially. So that worked out in my favor a lot, because that's also 6,000 or 7,000 in itself of what I would have paid. So I would have paid double. Essentially, that was my process. Like I said, I want to keep it short. And if you have any questions, you can just put it in the comments and I'll be glad to answer. And once I got the keys, we did a lot of work in the house, and it's a month and a half later and I feel very at home. I really love this place and I'm grateful to have it. And yeah, that's pretty much the story. So I hope that helped. Like I said, ask any questions otherwise. And yeah, hope you enjoy it. Peace.